Okay, so I'm Lindsay Jennings. I'm a student occupational therapy assisting at Cincinnati State. This is the presentation for my group protocol toolkit project. So the purpose of my groups is to educate people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia, who are considered for community reentry, on the importance of healthy eating and healthy habits, and also things that go along with healthy eating are budgeting for the grocery store, navigating the grocery store, preparing a healthy snack, and just overall being aware of which foods are healthy and which foods and how much of each and all that stuff. The membership size will be 8 clients ranging in age from 18 to 50. Some of the older clients will be encouraged to kind of form leadership roles amongst the younger clients. That's the reason for that. It'll be important for participants in this group to not display any outward signs of suicide or positive symptoms, as we'll be working in the kitchen. Group members will need to have basic math skills and at least medium cognitive level functioning, as required for navigating their respective neighborhoods as well as local shopping independently. The goals for these clients will be to identify food groups and portion recommendations, understand food costs as it pertains to weighing food per pound and when food is on sale, demonstrate confidence in navigating the grocery store, be aware of like the general layout of how things go in a grocery store, and also become familiar with food ingredients and be more comfortable in the kitchen. The reason for the groups that I chose for this population is because people who are diagnosed schizophrenic also suffer from many other things such as anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, poor social skills, difficulty initiating tasks. So these groups will help with that. And also sometimes they will just have a hard time like talking themselves into going to the grocery store or deciding to cook because it all just seems so overwhelming. So this will hopefully put those thoughts at ease, at least in most cases. To track the outcome, I created a questionnaire it's 15 questions. It'll be attached to my assignment, but there are questions about food prices, questions about healthy food choices, and address how the client feels about how much knowledge they have in those areas. So they'll be asked this at the beginning, and they'll also be asked this again at the end. I think I'll keep the end questions private, just in case there's some embarrassment there, but that'll be able to be where I track how much knowledge was gained through my groups. The method, the one group session will start with an icebreaker. All group sessions will start with an introduction. There will be handouts, videos. There's one time where we'll play a game, we'll be up and running. And then each group will end with processing, generalization, application, and summary. The leadership style of this group will be facilitative. I'm going to be there, but I'm not going to be participating. I'll provide all the instructions that are needed. I'll be there for questions or concerns, or to just keep a general eye over things. I'll provide all the materials. I'll have all the spaces set up. It'll be up to the group members to help each other out during these challenges or activities or whatever various things that we have. The group will meet on Tuesdays in the therapy room at SBH from 10:30 to 11:10, other than the cooking activity, which will take place in the kitchen area. So that's about 40 minutes per session. Okay, so for activity number 1, we'll start with an icebreaker where the group members will roll one die, and I came up with some questions that correlate to the numbers that they roll. Just questions about food. So if they roll a number 1, they'll get, no, me. If they roll a number 1, they'll get the question, what's the grossest food you've ever had to eat, just to be polite. Number 2, list your 5 favorite foods. Number 3, if you were a candy bar, what kind of candy bar would you be and why? Number 4, if you could have an endless supply of any food, what would it be and why? Number 5, what is the strangest thing you have ever eaten? Number 6, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? Okay, and then we'll have a short video, which I don't really know how to show you. Actually, push pause. Okay, so there is a video. I don't know how to show it to you in this format, but it's a video about the My Plate initiative, which talks about it replaced the food pyramid. So now it's a plate and it shows, so it's easier to see the portions. So we'll watch that video. It's like 3 minutes, not very long. And then, now come down here, Dan. And then we'll make this plate. So I'll have these little pieces of paper where they can cut out, and you'll see, like, it's black and white because my ink, but where the protein goes and where the starches go and where the veggies and the fruit go, and then the dairy. So they'll be able to create this themselves. And then there will be they'll be expected to share scissors and share glue. There'll be 4 things of each for 8 clients. They'll be encouraged to interact with each other by collaborating on making sharing stories and just overall getting to know each other. So the processing questions. What is one thing you learned today that you were surprised by? So maybe if somebody learned about My Plate, if they'd never heard of that before, or something along those lines. Did you talk to anybody in group today that had the same likes or dislikes as you? How did everybody work together to complete this activity? Was this activity enjoyable? What did you like the best and what did you like the least? So generalization, it says OTA will mentally review group responses and sum them up into general principles. I'll notice if there was a common theme amongst the plates, if there was a pattern in the responses of the group members during processing, was there commonality in the level of enthusiasm among group members? And then for application, each group member will be asked about their comfort level in planning portion sizes. Group will consider all the information located on the handout and review portion sizes. We'll discuss different ways that you can create a meal, such as instead of having all the chicken and the steak and the salmon, we can choose one thing and talk about what a healthy meal would look like for that. So for session number 2, a grocery store flyer game where everybody will be given a flyer from the grocery store, and then these grocery store task cards that ask questions like, pick 5 items from the store flyer, what is the total altogether? Pick 5 items from the store flyer, what would be the total if each item was 25 cents off? So they'll be able to work together and do some math skills and get some experience looking at food prices versus just money math problems that don't really relate to real life. So the introduction, we would start with a brief discussion about last week's group and ask if anyone has any healthy food stories to share, such as if they made healthy choices in the cafeteria or whatnot. What is one way that each member used their food plate to make a healthy decision over the last week? Are there any bad habits that one member thinks will be hard to break? Push pause. Okay. How much knowledge or experience do the group members have with budgeting for groceries, just to get the conversation going? Wait, did I already talk about? Okay, so that was the introduction, yeah, and then I already told you about the activity. I did that backwards. I didn't mean to do that. For group interaction. Yeah, so we'll break them into groups of 2. Does it say we're going to play a game? Put this on pause. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be a game. We're going to break the people into two groups of two. So there'll be four different groups, and I will ask the question, and then there'll be a buzzer or a bell for people to ring when they have the right answer. And then if they have the wrong answer, then another group will get a chance to answer, and so on and so forth. And then I have apples for a prize. Whoever wins that game, they get apples. So yeah, that'll be the group interaction. They'll be expected to work together to answer the questions and to try to get the fastest answer. Processing questions. What did you learn about yourself during this activity? How did everybody feel about the mild, healthy competition? Like, how did it feel to be up against your partner or up against your other group members and all that? Generalization. Was there disagreement among the group members during competition? How were those disagreements handled? Did I have to step in versus were they able to resolve their disagreement without me? Was any one member particularly quiet or not participating? And how can we remedy that problem for next time if there was somebody that really wasn't feeling this activity? For application, we'll prepare for going to the grocery store. That way they'll be familiar with the store flyers and how to do the math from the store flyers, and maybe grab a store flyer before they go to the grocery store, and pay attention to how much money we're saving when we are paying attention to sale prices and things like that. The group's purpose was to reach the goal of understanding the food costs. So we'll move on to session 3, which is a game of supermarket sweep. So we'll start with the introduction this time instead of doing it backwards like we did last time. So we'll start with the discussion about last week's activity, if the group members had the opportunity to put those skills to use, or if they were able to talk about that maybe at commissary, or if they had gone on a field trip or something. This activity will start with questions such as if you have any experience in the grocery store, either from maybe working at a grocery store, or maybe you've been, you've had to at one time in your life shop for your own groceries and things like that. So we'll talk about that. And if anybody is more afraid to go, or if they have any preconceived notions, or if they had a bad experience, we can talk about that. And then there's a short video where there's a woman. She kind of orients the watchers to the way the grocery store is set up, talking about how the fruits and vegetables in the produce section, and then it leads into all the way around the perimeter of the store, the meat section, and then the dairy section, and then the bread, and then talks about the things that are in the middle. So that's just a little information, and it's sets you up for playing the grocery store game that we'll play. So show this. So this is my grocery store that I have set up, and it's kind of not exactly set up how I would have it if I were in a clinic. I would hope to have, well, probably not real food either, but more aisles, and it would definitely be set up where there would be a perimeter where you could go all the way around. But this is just for the video's sake. So what will happen is group members will get a copy of one of these. They wouldn't be all the same, and they probably wouldn't be as long, considering that we have a limited time and limited space. So I would cut this down, but then we would set a timer, give everybody a basket. One person at a time will go, or maybe 2 people at a time will go, or maybe you have to beat the time. Hang on, I'm not real sure. Yeah, so they'll get 5 minutes on the clock to get their groceries, and then whoever finishes the majority of their list is the winner of that challenge. So group interactions would be, they would group members would be expected to interact appropriately. There is competition involved, so we want to be respectful of each other, stay out of everybody's way. They're going to be kind of running, jogging, not really trying to pay attention to the groceries and getting fast, so be respectful of that and stay out of the way. And then processing questions. How did it feel to be rushed into picking out grocery items? Was that an exhilarating feeling or was that a bad feeling? Were all the grocery store items where you expected them to be? Like I said, I would have it more set up the way a grocery store would be. How did it feel to be up against somebody instead of versus before where they were working in teams? This would be each person for himself. And what kind of social interaction skills helped you get through this activity? For generalization, I would want to notice if there were any overly aggressive players. Did any group members have a hard time with running or speed walking? And do group members grasp the concept? Were they looking for things in generally the same area? If they had grapes on their list, were they over at least by the fruits and vegetables? Things like that. And then for application, we would want to know if you feel comfortable with your knowledge about how the grocery store is laid out. And then we would just go over that again. What type of things are typically kept around the perimeters and what kind of things can we find in the middle? Okay, and then session 4 will be a gardening session. We'll start with an introduction. I will already have the room set up. The room will be set up in stations. One station for getting your, let's start with the introduction first. Let's start with that. So, but I will have it all set up. There'll be a tablecloth on the floor. We'll start a discussion about last week's session. Can you stand up? Thank you. We'll start a discussion about last week's session and ask if anybody has any new feelings about navigating the grocery store, if they got a chance to put that into practice. The group leader, I'll show a short video about microgreens, which are really super easy to plant. They include things like arugula, peas, sunflowers, and lettuce. So this man comes on, he talks about his gardening with those things. The video is actually 12 minutes long. I would suggest stopping it after 6 minutes. He goes on to talk about other things that we're not planting, root vegetables that we won't have, and also he makes a salad, which we also won't be doing. So about the 6-minute mark, I would stop that video and we would just watch about the things that pertain to our group. So like I said, we would have stations. Come down here, Dave. There'll be a station for picking out an egg carton. I would have these set out. I would also have potting soil, so there'll be a station for that. There'll be a station for picking the seeds, and then there'll be a station for pushing the seeds into the potting soil, as well as watering the plant and washing your hands. So the handout that goes with this is just how to do that. It talks about what are microgreens and how to plant them, which is super simple, and they're easy to grow inside. They grow within 30 days. So that's why this project would be good for this population. They grow really quickly. And then I actually had a little sunflower growing already, so I was able to use that. So the group interaction, they would be expected to take turns and wait as each person moved through the stations, give each other enough space to move through the stations, respect each other's choices. If somebody chooses all peas, we don't comment on that, things like that. So there would be arugula, peas, sunflowers, and lettuce to choose from. Processing, I would ask my group if they had any feelings about this activity. Has anyone had any experience with planting in the past? What other vegetables we can think of that are easy to grow, such as tomatoes and sometimes bean sprouts? Does this seem like an activity that you would enjoy doing once you're out of the hospital and once you're back in the community? And do you feel more confident in growing your own food after doing this activity? Generalization, I would want to know if anybody had a hard time choosing which seeds to plant, if anyone had a hard time waiting in line, and how helpful were the group members that weren't struggling to the ones that were struggling. Okay, and then we'll do session 5 is actually a recipe. It's a recipe for banana oat cookies. They're no bake. So we would start with an introduction, and I would ask about how the plants are doing as far as now that, we should be able to see some progress with the plants after a week. And I'll remind them that this is going to be our last group session. I'll pass out the questionnaire from the first group and collect those. And this says that I will keep those private, and I would just be able to measure the progress. And then we would get into the activity, which is I would break the group members into groups of 2. Again, we would have 4 groups of 2. And they would each have their own set of ingredients, their own bowl full of ingredients. And as far as the activity, it's just mashing together everything, following a recipe. The recipe has 4 steps, so it's not really that complicated. The group members would expect to work together, help with other group members if they needed help. For processing, the group members will be asked how they felt about this cooking activity. When could you make this recipe and use it? Because it does yield 16 cookies. So what are some good places where you could maybe make 16 cookies and freeze them and have them take them for your lunches, or make 16 cookies and take them to a work Christmas party, or however you can use it. Would you know how to locate these ingredients in the grocery store? It's bananas and oats and syrup. Would you know where to find those things if you were shopping for those ingredients? And maybe talk about the food groups that these things fall into, just to tie everything back together. Generalization, I would want to know if anyone struggled on how to follow the 4-step recipe. If there was any one group that didn't work together, well, I would want to know about that. And if anyone seemed just uninterested in the activity, I would want to know about that. And that, we're almost done. So then for my closure, I would thank everybody for participating in my 5-week group session. I'd hope I've given my group members some strong ideas and knowledge, not only about how to eat healthy, but also about how to feel safe and confident in new places, such as the grocery store or the kitchen. I would encourage them to continue to form the relationships that they started forming in group and lean on each other, even if it's only for the time while they're in the hospital. But then also, if they ended up in the same community, they could rely on each other to help with these things that they, have learned in my group sessions.